All right, let's move to kind of a fun direction here, though. So I'm going to throw out some topics. You tell me if you think it's overrated or underrated.
Cool. I was always jealous of people who get asked these things. Like, I want to be asked this
Well,
overrated, underrated.
you're being asked these here. Okay, first one is carb backloading in your diet.
Huh. Um, so, I'm gonna say overrated. Um, for some people, it might be underrated because it might actually have a big impact on them if they don't eat carbs or much of them, or at least fastly absorbable ones early in the day, and they have it later. Like that might actually treat their energy levels well. But I also feel like it's one of those things that like one person started saying it, we know who that is, like John Kiefer, right? And then it spread, and even some like well reputed people in the evidence-based crowd started talking about how that just works so much better for them. And then I think now actually a lot of people are like just noceboing themselves into thinking that, yeah, like I'm crashing when I eat carbs, so it's really bad to have them early in the day. So yeah, it's not a totally bad concept. I think it can be useful for some people, maybe for many people, but it's still overrated because of that.
All right, next one is bulking and cutting cycles as an intermediate lifter.
Yeah, underrated, I would say. So I think that there comes a point where bulking basically just becomes not practical and just not worth it. Because even though you will still get something out of it, probably, when you actually look at the raw numbers and just the raw visuals, it's like, okay, what actually came out of this over the last couple of years, you will see that, okay, like by bulking, I'm just not packing on a lot of extra meat. But I think especially as an intermediate, like you just come to a point where like just hovering around like at a comfortable and usually like also good looking physique is just not really getting you, I wouldn't say anywhere, but that's how you can easily spend months just really not making any substantial progress. And it's the whole intermediate phase is tricky because like that's the point where you're still early enough in your journey to where you can make a good amount of progress, and you probably also still want to make a good amount of progress, but it's late enough to where mistakes are just a lot more unforgivable. And that's true in training. So that's when you're like, you cannot just go and, yeah, I'll train hard, but I'm not tracking anything and I'm being random with my exercise selection, and also with diet. Like, yeah, as a beginner, early intermediate, like, yeah, you can cut, bulk, whatever, you're going to put on some size while you're doing all of that. But getting into that actual intermediate phase, like that starts punishing you and like really slowing you down. So I will say underrated.
Okay, and the next one, which is something I am horrible at, mindful eating.
So I would say underrated, um, simply because, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna say underrated because it's actually the reason why I didn't just say it like super confidently is because it's not easy, you know. So I think it would be a little bit hypocritical to just say like, oh, just eat mindfully, like just don't have any distractions. Like, no, first of all, it's fun to have distractions while you're eating, and secondly, it requires attention to not do it just because it's like so second nature. You're easily, like, if you get into the habit of mindful eating, you're easily snapped out of it as soon as you're in a social setting or whatever. So like it's tricky to get into, but when you do it, like even I get surprised by how powerful it is. So that's why I would still say it's quite underrated, because it is not, it is more than just getting full more easily. It is actually a completely different experience. Like eating in front of your laptop or phone or TV is fun and nice. I definitely love it. But like eating and like actually like focusing on it, it's like it's like almost like a meditative, like I wouldn't say trance-like experience, like that we overselling it, but it is actually quite remarkable how the eating experience itself and how you feel afterwards changes when you do it. To be honest, even like you don't even have to like really focus on it. That's the best, of course. But like even if you're just letting your mind wander, even that's a very different experience. In fact, like speaking about diffuse mode and focus mode, like some of my best like content ideas came to me actually while eating. So, and
Interesting.
during those times, I never watched or listened to anything.
Yeah, a lot of my
So,
good ideas come when I'm going for a walk and I don't have technology on me. I guess that's kind of similar. And
doing the dishes.
yeah, so I have an interesting experience. I went to this restaurant where you eat in the dark and all the servers are blind. So they're
Oh
serving you
god,
food in the dark. And it's
sounds a little bit
definitely
morbid.
incredibly mindful experience, but you really can smell like differently than you normally do because you have nothing else to focus on because you don't even have your visual aspect of things. I did that maybe like 10 years ago. It's an interesting experience, but yeah, I'm always on my laptop, so I find that really challenging. Like I'm just watching YouTube videos or whatever when I'm eating kind of consistently. So I'd say that's probably something I could work on, but then there's a part of me that doesn't almost want to work on it. So I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, I would say it's good to like flirt with it occasionally. Like I think it's one of those things that it is inconvenient enough to where like making a big commitment that okay, from now on this is how I do it can be a bit overwhelming. Unless like if you don't have if you don't really feel the downsides of it like in your day to day, then it's not a huge deal. If you're like how I was, that like pretty much this far away from actually having a clinical situation with your eating behaviors because it's so disordered, then yeah, I would very strongly advise giving it a go.
No, I have a challenge with overeating. I have a very large appetite, so I'm sure it would actually be helpful. Uh, I should give it a go.
Yeah.
All right, now I'm gonna throw out some quotes that you've said in the past. Tell me the first thing that comes to mind.
Cool.
Uh, when something doesn't come to you naturally, don't think you can get complacent. You need to put in the work. There's constant maintenance work that has to be done.
So did what was the first word like or second word when something does or doesn't?
Doesn't come to you naturally.
So I'm curious. First thought is I'm curious what the context of this was, because it's kind of an odd. Like it would have made seems like it would make more sense if I said like if something comes to you naturally, don't get complacent.
I think it was regarding like going back in terms of like the habits to get to maintain your leanness, for example. Like if it doesn't come to
Yeah.
you naturally, like there's no
Oh,
automatic mode when you're in maintenance type of thing. Like you have to put in that work.
yes. Um, I'm actually very close to guessing which video or podcast it was. I have a pretty retardedly freakish memory with random things like this. So I think, yeah, like my first thought is that I very much agree with my past self on that because it's quite mind blowing how good habits can just go out the window so quickly that you work so hard for to develop. Whereas like bad habits can so easily slip back. And of course, like it kind of makes sense because like bad habits are usually bad habits because there's a little friction to them and usually there's some big reward, at least a perception of a big reward that comes with them. And like good habits are sort of the opposite, and that's why they're hard. So yeah, like it is constant maintenance work, and it's easy to get complacent. Like I definitely thought that like okay, I paid my dues for this. I can like really just lay back. Like for example, with I mean, a lot of the like some of them weren't even just bad habits, but also like I forgot how careful I need to be. Like the disordered eating patterns that I worked really hard to get rid of, and like I really have gotten rid of them, like to the point where I thought that I'm just like cured permanently. And then it's like I had to learn the hard way that like, no, if I do a certain set of things again, like they can very much be brought back. So that's why, like, I will always say that, yeah, like, I have some disordered eating tendencies. I will never speak of that like past tense fully.
Okay.
It's just like I've been clean of them for a while now. So yeah.
No, that makes sense. I feel that way when I'm bulking, like when I'm cutting, like my habits are so good. And then like as I start bulking, I just kind of sometimes let myself slip more and more. And I do things that I know are not needed. Like I know I shouldn't be in a 1,500 calorie surplus, but then I trick myself and like, oh, I had a really good workout today, so it's all going to go to muscle, even though I know that's not what's going to happen because, you know, those bad habits start stacking on each other.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it's quite remarkable how your like standards of like what you expect of yourself in terms of like precision, and also like how conservative or optimistic you are regarding these things, like flips from cutting to bulking.
Yeah,
Quite
exactly.
amazing.
All right, next one here. And we chatted about this a lot earlier. A lot of people worship these people. They think they're superhuman. We, the viewer, is at fault for having this idea. So we believe that the fitness influencer can be a self-help or personal development guru.
Oh, damn. Like, it's nice to see that I had good thoughts even back then. Just kidding. Yeah, I mean, I'm curious where that comes from. Like, I think a lot of people.
You were talking about student aesthetics at the time. Marian, is that it? Yeah, I remember.
Marian.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, for anybody who watches soccer, looks a lot like Erling Haaland, who plays for Man City. But anyways, so yeah, like I think that a lot of people just have, at least I heard, like they don't have proper like father figures or something, and they are trying to make up for them in the form of these YouTubers and people like that. But yeah, it's I've been in situations like that. I think I shared this a couple of times in podcasts and the like, that I've been in situations where I had to witness someone that I like really looked up to act in a way that was just really like I got disillusioned.
Mm-hmm.
And like the first time I experienced that, I actually after that had to think and like kind of work on it, like, okay, what am I going to do with this experience? And the thing is, I think I put it to its right place, and today I still look up to that person and I still like that person, because I had to realize that like I had a completely arbitrary made up assumption in my head that, okay, I look up to this person for XY, therefore I make the assumption that they are like that in all areas. And I had to realize that no, like that's a ridiculous assumption. I myself am not like that. Like I have some areas where I'm really proud of how I do things, and there are some that are like I'm one of the worst examples that you could set. And the thing is, like most people are like that. Like we're better or worse at different things, and like yeah, because like we have this. What's the word for that? Parasocial relationship with these people. We create this non-existent figure in our heads that like, okay, this person is like this. And yeah, so it's not a healthy relationship that we develop with these folks. And yeah, I think people just have to realize that.
Okay. Yeah, I think another challenge is if you are a fitness influencer, it's really easy to think that you're successful because of your mindset and that it applies to all aspects of life, as opposed to maybe there's something aesthetically about you or your personality, and you might not know how to actually help someone who's not you with how you look and things like that. Like it is a big part of it ultimately.
Yeah, and like so it's different. It's like it would also be hypocritical to say that they have like no base of thinking that whatsoever. Because
No.
for one thing, like, crafting a body that you're proud of, it definitely requires like more willpower and delayed gratification,
Yep.
self-reflection, knowing yourself, even like just becoming a little bit of an intuitive psychologist, more of that than sitting on the couch and eating pizza, right?
100%.
But and also working with someone, like helping someone through a fat loss journey who is not like I just like, okay, if you tell me this is what to eat, I'm a robot. So if someone is not like that, like helping a person like that, you will have to be a little bit of an intuitive psychologist along the way. The problem is that like people are actually terrible intuitive psychologists usually. Even like I think I'm amazing at that, and probably I'm mediocre at best. But and people who think that are pretty good are probably terrible at that. But like it's actually being studied quite a lot. Like the intuitions that we have of like, yeah, if you do this, then this is how things are going to pan out, are usually just dead wrong. Like you don't even have to be an expert on that. Just read a couple of books like Willpower Instinct, like that had a bunch of surprising info. Even a book like Mindless Eating, even though a couple of studies were fake in that one, but still, like you will have to get better at that if you're into fitness. And at the same time, like handling all the feedback from your audience, who is putting you in that pedestal. I honestly think that the point where they overstep that line is once they like significantly venture away from the topic of fitness, but they're still talking about it on their fitness platforms. So like, yeah, okay. So like now when you're talking about like marriage and you're talking about like politics and whatever,
Yeah.
it's like, dude, like if you really want to talk about those things, just make a separate channel and use some AI voice or something. Like I have been thinking about that a lot. Like there's so many topics that I actually feel really passionate about, but do I want to mix my online presence with those topics or whatever? Like now I'm just a fitness guy for now. Like I'll have to find a separate solution for those things. So
Okay. I got one more quote here for you. And you mentioned when you interviewed Mario Tomic in 2016 that this stuck with you. If you're not doing the basics already that make common sense, ask yourself, why aren't you doing them? We think about optimality, but the solution sometimes is just the basics.
oh yes, 100%. By the way, I'm gonna turn up the lights because I'm awkward looking around because I'm looking for the remote of the lights, but and then there was light, or what was the quote in the Bible? Let there be light. I don't know. So yeah, that's definitely a very memorable moment when he said that. And I even have his facial expressions as he is saying that. Like he was very helpful, but like I could almost sense a small sense of like irritation on him. That like, so listen to me, motherfucker. Like I see your channel. Like I see how much you uploaded in the past month. Like you're asking me about optimizing things. Like you see how much I'm uploading. Like kind of that was I think the thought process that he must have had. And yeah, it's I mean, I think it's just such it's a difficult thing to hear, but also a liberating thing in a sense, because that overwhelm that we tend to get when we think of how we could get somewhere, because we look at the list of things to do as like a list of actions that are like all equally important. And of course, it's also natural to look at those that are the best at what they're doing, or that they are very successful already. What are they doing currently? And then we get bogged down with that. And then in the whole process, we forget that we haven't actually done anything. And, also like, I don't know how much, I mean, if you're a procrastinator, you might know the feeling of just like not realizing that you spent the past week like just planning and visualizing stuff, but not actually doing anything. Which when I came across The Secret, for example, that book that we all know, like, yeah, I mean, it was a very thrilling and uplifting period. Like I spent a couple of months doing nothing else but just attracting positive things to me with my mind. But in the meantime, I haven't actually done anything. So, which is a little bit of a different situation, but still, like, you just tend to think that you have so much to do, and like often just actually getting your foot in the door and just doing the very first, very simple thing is already enough to just put things in motion. And like, also, as you might know, again, like entrepreneurial stuff and all these projects, like oftentimes the steps that you need to take along the way are just totally different than what you envisioned in advance, because like, you learn on the go, right? Like, how's the saying? Like, you end up selling circles at the end, even though you started selling like triangles, and in the beginning you didn't even know that squares existed. And it's also like that with fitness stuff, right? Like, we look at, it's like, okay, I want to get in shape. Okay, so who is in really amazing shape? C-Bum is in really amazing shape. Or Mike Israel is in really amazing shape. It's like, whoa, like volume escalation and myo reps and like all these things. And it's like, dude, like, you could just go to the gym, just do a set to failure on every machine that you see first. Just come back twice a week. You're done. You're going to get great results for the first like 3 months. So
yeah, I agree. Like, especially on the diet side of things, like there's so much discussion about like optimal foods and vitamins and partitioning and timing, when for most people it's just like calories. If you just take care of calories, and then on the lifting side you just care about progressing on some lifts, for the vast majority of people, that's the basics. If you're not doing that, why are you talking about the other stuff? Like, it's fine that we talk about all the other stuff, because the assumption is that we're all doing the basics. But if you're not doing the basics, do the basics.
Yeah, I mean, if you if you really nail down your calories and you actually stick to them, and you just train hard, and I mean, fuck, like, if you can get luxurious and you're even like tracking your lifts and try to progress with them. But if you do those things, I mean, I don't know, what would you say? I would say, I mean, at the very least, it's 60, but maybe 80% of your results.
It's probably 80 is my guess.
Yeah.
Especially as a beginner or early intermediate, maybe as advanced. I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm an advanced lifter, so I don't know the.
At that point, you're gonna get a bit more finicky with things. But between 60 and 80% definitely, and like it's and I'm guessing it must be like that with most areas.
Yeah, it's with most areas, I think. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, here's a fun question for you.
Yay.
What's your Mount Rushmore, your personal 4 favorite upper body exercises right now?
4 favorite. Okay. Chin-ups, like narrow-ish grip, like a little bit, just a little bit narrower than shoulder width, and neutral grip or some rotating implements. So that's like childhood love. That's gonna be with me until I can do the exercise. Second one would be so I would say dumbbell overhead press is just such an alpha exercise. Any kind of overhead press, to be honest, like just the lockout as you're standing there, like kicking the dumbbells up, especially as you get like pretty strong with them, and like the dumbbells are like heavy enough to wear. So what is he gonna do with it? Is he gonna like, well, maybe not deadlift them, they're not that heavy, but like, okay, maybe do a bench press, and there's like, ooh, you're just like pressing it overhead, damn it. So that one. Then I would say, so I do like these stupid me, of course, like the preacher curls, dumbbell preacher curl on a quite vertical like preacher bench. So definitely not the 45-degree bicep tear prospect. So
I do that.
It's so I was gonna say immediately that, like, of course it's not quite like that, and with the dumbbell it's actually quite safe. It can be as well with a easy bar or a barbell, but you will need to kind of angle your body in a way because you're just not really meant to like resist forces like this or close to it.
Yeah.
And so that one, I mean, it's by far easily my favorite ever bicep exercise. I'm so glad that I found it because I could never go as hard as on this one, on any bicep exercise. And actually, I'm almost inclined to mention another one, which would be also a bicep exercise, but that would be so actually like, the Bayesian curl or direct curl, whatever.
Yeah,
So
like
like
behind with cables or
cable, but
yeah,
like
that's
so
a good exercise.
yeah, and like if you put a bench down and just like kind of set it up in front of the cable stack, and you go like bilateral, so two hands. That one, like you can actually really push yourself hard, because like you can sort of brace against the bench, so it's not going to like drag you back.
Do you do a full range of motion on that, or do you just start in the lengthen and kind of do like a half, like more of a partial? Or are you going fully contracted on that?
So what I started doing on that is that I actually don't. So actually, I keep my shoulder like hyper extended, I guess. So like my arms are behind my body the whole time.
Oh, okay.
So I don't need to resist like this.
Okay.
So it's a little bit similar to the preacher variation that I do, is that like the resistance is not like directly like pulling my hands backwards, but it's almost like my hands are not, wouldn't say an extension of the cable, my forearm, but more like that. And there's still some tension there in the stretch position, but not quite as much. And there's a lot less like extra work you need to do with your shoulder that way. And you can but push harder in practice. So that's how I do it. And was that 4 or was this only 3?
No, we did preacher, we did the Bayesian, we do chin up, and we did dumbbell shoulder press. So I think we did 4.
Yeah, I actually love low incline chest dumbbell presses. Unfortunately, I had to stop it because my gym's incline bench collapsed under me with like 36 kilos in my hands. Whoa. And that was a little bit of a scary feeling. I easily could have torn my pecs doing that. So until I find a new gym or they get new benches.
Why do you think everyone in our fitness community works out at home? Like, it seems like more and more people are working out at home. I wonder, like, what are your thoughts on that? Because I like the social aspect of like leaving my house and going to a gym. But I also don't record my lifts, so I don't know if that plays a place in it too.
So if you had asked me this like a year and a half ago, I would have completely be on the same page as you. Mm-hmm. I'm so sick and tired of going to this gym. And each time I'm in a new gym, that's a little bit of a new thrill. So I do like that. But this gym, like I've been using it for like 7 years now, and I'm just so sick and tired. I feel like I just cannot go there anymore. Like everything, like the walk to the gym, like the changing room, whatever, like everything. I'm just like, I think of it and I feel sick in my stomach. So really? I've actually been doing a lot of at-home stuff, and
yeah, like I know Dave McConey switched to like working out at home now. For example, he was going to the gym.
Also, another thing is that like in gyms, I don't know how it is over there in the gym that you're using, but the sacred times in gyms are no longer sacred times. So it used to be the case if you're like working at home or like you have flexibility with your time, there are like certain like golden times to go there when it's like pretty much empty.
It's never empty. I train like 9:30 a.m. to 11 usually, and it's okay. It's not too bad at that time, but it's still busy enough. Like I don't always get the machine I want.
Yeah. So like, and I mean, if you're going there for the social aspect, probably you don't even want it to be empty, but like at least empty enough for me to where like I don't need to wait for equipment like 95% of the time.
Yeah.
And so, it used to be that like noon until like 3 p.m. is like, if you go there, then nobody's who's going to be there, like the few people that are working from home. But, since the Cove, a lot more people are working. Yeah. So it's like, it's like there are just no really safe times, it seems. So that I think that's another thing. And like, yeah, I'm just, yeah, I think I'm just too old to be waiting for equipment, you know?
Yeah, for me, as someone who works from home, like in an office by myself all day, like my co-founders are in California, it's just an excuse for me to get out of the house. Otherwise, I'll go crazy. Like I thought about setting up this great home gym, and then I'm like, I may not leave the house for days. Like I don't think I want that.
You know, actually, like one completely random comment on gyms. I don't know if it's the same there, but so far any country I've been to, it's been like, I feel like the changing rooms in gym are all like, I've never been in a changing room that was big enough. Like it always seems like the spaces are like always like 20% smaller than what they would need to be. So people actually don't never fit properly.
I agree on
Is it
that.
like
That's
that?
fine. I think
But
so.
why is it like
Yeah, I
that?
agree. Like you have to like squeeze by people to get to the locker. Yeah, that happens all the time.
But why? Why can't they fix that? I don't know. Like,
Maybe I don't know. Who knows? All right. And I have one more question here for you, and that is, you've interviewed a lot of people. If there's one guest you could interview again, who would it be and why?
who? That's a good question. Let's see. Um, so, you know what? Since we chatted about him before the podcast, Jeff Nippert, I would say. Yeah,
You had him on twice, right? I think, or
I had him on
once?
twice. And I mean, there's just so much I would love to ask him about his journey, which we'd never really talked about, as in like his journey to become like the huge figure that he is now online. And Jeff is such an incredibly nice guy. Like that's why this whole incident was so baffling for me. Is that like, if there are like two people that I could think of that like nobody's ever gonna do anything like this to them because they're just so nice. One would be Eric Helms, but to be honest, like Eric Helms is also a lovely guy compared to Jeff. Even like he could be seen as a dickhead by some, because Jeff is truly like one of the nicest people I've ever interacted with. And so it's nice to talk to him. And also, I mean, look what he has become as a YouTube sensation superstar. So obviously lots of interesting things to ask of him.
I guess that's actually a good question. Like, could you have seen that he would have been this big, or Mike Israel? Like, would you, if you had to bet that someone would have been big, would it have been them? Because they seem to be the two that probably blew up the most on people that you've interviewed.
So Mike Israel more so, I would say, because I mean it was just so obvious from the first time I heard him that like the guy is meant to be on camera and in front of the mic. No pun intended. And yeah, like unfortunately, the number of dad jokes I make per hour just goes up exponentially by
Your jokes are good as long as you don't say "just kidding" after them.
Oh, that's part of the franchise. even if I did a stand up, even then I would be after every joke. So. What was I saying? Yeah, so Mike was definitely just meant to be doing this, and he just has the personality, and like he loves cracking jokes, and like he's speaking so fast, like you could just wake him up from a dream, and
Yeah,
he
he's
could
good
go
at
on a rant.
debating too. Yeah.
Yeah, so like with him, I saw it a lot more. So with Jeff, no, and that is because. It's not like I didn't see that. Okay, he has, I guess, what it takes. Like he has a good physique, he's good looking, and he seems to be putting in the work. But there were just a lot of guys like him, at the time it seemed like.
Mm-hmm.
And also like, so I basically interviewed him the first time around. He had like 7,000 subs, and that was like just before, like a couple of months before, but through like two months before. Like this bang, like explosion that he had. And that's when he had actually a pretty radical shift in the type of content he was creating. So like science explained this, science explained that. That's when it came. And also like these long interviews, roundtables. That's also was like really, it was just before that. So I came across him first because of an interview he did with Menno Henselmans. And then I checked out his channel, and most of his videos were yeah, they were good, but like pretty like, yeah, so now I went to the gym, did this, and yeah, like I decided to eat a bit more protein, and so quite dry, relatively speaking. So no, I was definitely very surprised when I saw that. It's like, what? Like, how did this guy all of a sudden get 50,000 subs? It's like, what, 100? What, two? What the fuck? Like, I was actually quite surprised.
I wish there was like a business. Someone should make this where you can like bet on influencers growing or something like that and make money off of it. I feel like I could do decent in fitness. I think I would crush it in like sports. Like this basketball channel is going to blow up or something. I don't know. I guess that's what advertisers do, right? They bet on people early on and hope they grow. But I feel like if you're in the space, you could kind of see like, oh, I think this person's going to blow up. And I don't know. I was trying to think how to make a side hustle here.
we could play that amongst each other until that happens. But
yeah. Let's bet on 5 people.
I was earlier thinking like there should be something like this with like betting on what the next like fad or fitness trend is going to be, or maybe even outside of that. So like for example, overall trend. Like I think in a couple of years there will be like a big, I mean, basically like anti-woke movement, for example. Not to go into that, but like I think it's inevitable that there will be
happening, right? Pendulum swings one way, swings the other.
I mean, it's inevitable. And I think in fitness, there will have to be some sort of like, like fat is bad, carbs are good. Like, I mean, in a very small way, it already happened, like within like bodybuilding circles. Like people got sick of all the low carb propaganda, and so I don't even know. Yeah. So like, I think maybe there will be like a new like clean food, dirty food. Like
I think seed oils is going to be a big thing. Like seed oils are bad. I think that's.
But wasn't that like already a big thing? Like,
yeah, maybe it's already a big thing. Maybe I'm just starting to see it more. But I think it'll.
Yeah, with the whole paleo, stuff. So inflammation and everything. So yeah, that could be another fun thing to bet on. But yeah, with YouTube, I feel like it will be pretty easy to nail. Like it's quite easy to see like which channel is just destined to grow.
All right. Actually, I have one more thing here. So you have this body fat score calculator.
Yes.
Probably hard to read it here. So I actually filled it out. It says I should stick at 15% body fat, probably because my mindful eating and my relationship with food is not great. You want to maybe just talk through this in terms of how people should figure out what their ideal body fat is, because you come on YouTube Fitness and you right away think like you need to like be 12% body fat. So, how should people think through that decision?
Which by the way, just as you mentioned, that I think that's going to be another trend. So like you will have to be like super lean to be worthwhile. Like that's going to make a comeback eventually again, because like there was enough pushback against that. But so I think, like this was such a little gem. I'm actually very proud of this whole thing that I put together there. This was quite a lot of work. So I was basically just trying to illustrate with this that, people are, I guess, like with anything, they're talking about these things that they would love to have. And they don't really spend time with actually thinking about how they would like to live. So like I set myself goals, not in fitness, but in other areas a lot, that like of course, like if you ask me, like, would you like to be like some many multi-millionaire or billionaire like businessman? Like, of course. The thing is that I know that I would probably hate the lifestyle that comes with that. Like I don't want to have freaking like 13-hour days and like being woken up in the middle of the night because it's like some fire that I need to put out because like the business is about to collapse because of some moron or whatever. Like, no, like I would rather make 1/10 of that and actually have like a much more comfy lifestyle. And similarly with fitness, like, if you have like a super active social life that involves like eating out constantly and like you love to party and doing all of these things, can it be done while being at like 10% body fat? and without abusing crack cocaine or something like that. So that's a big caveat. Yeah, sure, it can be done, but is it going to be much, much harder? Yeah. And like, like for example, I had a client, this was like last year. She was like really trying to stay like really lean for a woman. And her social life, I mean, it was mind blown by the end of like pretty soon that like, do you guys ever eat at home? Like they were constantly out, like big groups of people, and always like some sort of food event was happening. And it was a pretty meaningful thing for her. Like it was a big part of what made her social life what it is, and also like some big family influence there, attending a lot of that as well, like family events where like, okay, the mom is cooking, grandma is cooking, whatever. And it's like her trying to stick to some kind of a diet, especially like a strict one, which she was also like quite small, like stature wise and everything, so calories had to be quite low. And like it was basically just ruining life and really like challenging relationships and everything. And like, it's not that like you need to choose between the two, but also like do you really want to live like this? Like you see what it takes on a day-to-day to actually get closer to your goals. Like, would you really want this as a lifestyle? Like anything close to this, is it worth it? And people like just don't think about this. And like, I know I have attempted repeatedly, like banging my head against the wall, like trying to like brute force certain things. And like, I would get there again and again, and I would be surprised why I'm bouncing back. And it's like, well, but dude, like I'm simply not willing to live like this. Why am I surprised that it keeps happening?
Yeah, there's also like seasons for things too. So like when I lived in California, I maintained probably 12% for 2 years because I didn't have a ton of social obligations and things on weekends. And then when I moved back to Toronto, I realized I wasn't able to maintain it and I kept getting frustrated. And the reality is I just had like more family gatherings and I have more friends here and I had more reasons to go out. So in order to maintain 12% here, I just wouldn't have the lifestyle I wanted here. So it's like, that's why this spreadsheet's telling me like 15. But if I did this spreadsheet with my California stuff, I probably would say I could maintain 11, 12%, no problem. Just different environment, different life.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I could, like, I would actually be curious what I would get now, but I would also think that I would get something like this. Because yeah, like the way things are aligning right now is just, it's not the 10% season for me.
I give myself a perfect score for social eating because I'm working on an app that helps you eat healthy when you're at restaurants. So I have to give myself a good mark for that. But the other stuff, not so much.
Yeah. I get like my big advantage is that like I'm just really not a huge foodie in terms of like, so I like eating a lot more than I like really tasty food. I guess that's how I would put it. So how much I love eating would definitely put me at a disadvantageous position, but like because I'm so not picky, and like just don't see a huge difference and like, okay, this is so delicious versus like meh, that helps a little bit.
Cool. All right. I'm going to end things off today with something funny because that's what I always do here. So you once said, and you actually said this with Marian earlier, is that you seem to recognize similarities between two faces where others don't seem to get it. And you gave an example of young Tom Jones and Ross from Friends. So
yes.
Do you see that you look like this guy from the TV show Silicon Valley?
I can see. So the thing is, I have a really difficult time with myself. But I can see. Yes. Like,
have you seen that show? Do you know what I'm talking about or no?
No, but I've been told. So this guy was shown to me by someone before that, like he looks like me. I looked at him, was like, I'll take it.
So in the show, he's playing pretty much Mark Cuban.
Okay.
So his tequila here is Tres Camas because he's a billionaire. So he's like a joke version of Mark Cuban. But
Is that an option for my wallet to look like Mark Cuban's wallet?
yeah, you could try working on that. And I know you like the Mavericks too, and they're playing. So
yeah. But so I can definitely see it. So I have a pretty big forehead, not quite as big as this guy's, but like the beard. No, he has a better nose than I do.
you're more jacked, but just the.
But he looks in pretty good shape in this picture, at least.
Yeah.
Looks like he works out.
Thanks a lot for your time. Where can everyone find you?
Thank you. So YouTube channel is SSD Abel. So SSD, like your computer's SSD. And what's it called? ssdable.com, and is my website. And in theory, I'm on Instagram, but I use it so little that I literally forgot my Instagram handle. So don't bother there.
All right. Appreciate it, man. Talk soon.
Me too.